Dave Anderson here with the Fisherman magazine. On this week's web fishing forecast, we have more schoolies heading into Rhode Island but seeming to skip the west wall. We have excellent blackfishing out at Block Island and in western Connecticut, but still slow to start in interior Rhode Island and Massachusetts. We have cod fishing lighting up south of Block Island and out at the east grounds. And we have phenomenal trout fishing out on the Cape, throughout interior Massachusetts, and throughout most of Connecticut as well. Stay tuned for all that.
The Fishing News is sponsored by these fine partners.
We're going to start in Massachusetts as always. And what we're seeing out on the Cape ponds is just phenomenal trout fishing. Here's a picture from the Goose Hummock Shop from a carefully hidden location. Really nice brook trout there, and it's just indicative of the type of fishing that we're seeing out there. We're not really hearing anybody complain. The state is doing a phenomenal job stocking and keeping places stocked. We're seeing a lot of nice fish taken, and we're just seeing a lot of happy anglers using a wide array of methods to catch these fish. Further inland, you're going to see some pictures here of my lifelong friend Alex Rickoff and his sons, Landon age 8 and Tyler age 5, with their first trout of the season. These were taken in Westboro, Massachusetts, where I grew up. And this is just further showing how well the state has done stocking and just how phenomenal the fishing has been. There's a lot to be said for stock trout. Yeah, they're a little dumb and they're a little easy to catch, but they're really great for getting kids into the sport, and they will hit such a wide variety of methods that they make a great challenge for adults and kids alike. You'll see in those photos that Landon caught his on a spinner, Tyler caught his on a worm or power bait under a bobber, and you know, it's just great to have these sizable fish that can be taken on so many different methods. And there's so many different species that really keeps it interesting for the kids and adults. Largemouth fishing has also continued to be great. The Cape ponds seem to be leading the way there. Any pond with stock trout in it, or especially those with herring runs, are producing fish. And this week stands to be a pretty important week if you're a largemouth guy. Stick around to the end of this video to hear my thoughts on why that is. We're also seeing some smallmouth bass moving into their spawning areas in both the Wachusett Reservoir and Quabbin. Here's a picture from Fisherman contributor Jamie Golden of a really nice smallie that he took, I'm guessing, in one of those ponds, but I don't know the full details on that. But that's just showing the type of fish that are moving in closer to shore right now. And you know, if you go out there and throw Ned rigs or a dark sleeper or suspending jerkbait, you got a good chance of catching a really nice fish this time of year. If you've got bronze backs on the brain, now is the time. Don't waste it. I also got a report from our regular contributor to the reports here, James Jukes, and I'm just going to read that one verbatim for you. James says that there's plenty of freshwater fish still on the chew north of Boston. Clay and him got out on a local pond with their young friend Ryan, and he got his first yellow perch along with some sunfish during that crappy weather on Saturday. I was out in that weather, and it was a handful. He says getting the young ones out of the water away from the video games is half the battle, and he said that Ryan was just so happy he couldn't get the smile off of his face and seems to be pretty well hooked. He also went to the Merrimack and tried for shad. He finally stuck a shad, but he said the run is still real slow to start up there. He put in 40 hours to finally get into some fish. And he said he's starting to hear of a few others getting into fish as well. Thanks a lot for that report, James. We always love to hear from all our readers, and thanks again for keeping us updated on what's happening up there on the North Shore. Now, stripers are starting to move into Massachusetts, but really the only place we're hearing anything consistent is out on the Vineyard. I talked to Doug from Dick's Bait and Tackle, and he said that there's been fish on the South Shore, particularly along the inlets. There's been gannets diving on bait off the beaches. There's bunker inside the harbors. So there's a lot going on out there, and I think it's just going to keep getting better and better out there. And these fish are going to start to filter in to Buzzards Bay and the Lower Cape, and they'll filter into everywhere. I think you're going to see a lot more action, striper action, throughout Massachusetts right after this full moon goes by on the 26th. They're also seeing some guys trying for tog out on the vineyard, but they haven't heard any reports come back yet. I also got a report from Greg McSherry, good friend of mine who works at Red Top, and I'm going to read that one verbatim as well. He said the rainstorm we had toward the end of the week dropped a lot of cold rain, and the water temps dropped, and the fishing was on the tougher side. Those that chose to grind out through the crappy weather were rewarded. He said they weighed in a really nice 5.12 pound brown trout caught by Austin Parker. You'll see that on the screen here. He was fishing a down Cape pond with shiners and managed a few trout, including that beauty. Looking ahead, the wind direction is going to change, and we're going to see a lot of west and southwest wind this week. This should finally get the tog bite into gear for the boat crowd, and the shorebound guys might have to wait a little bit longer unless you're fishing the maritime pier in the canal. Warm winds and warm water temps should also help bring in some of those fresh run schoolies from the vineyard. I agree with everything Greg said. Thanks again, Greg, for sending that report over. And as he indicated there, Blackfish is really only just starting. It's really mostly just outside the west end right now. Look for that to expand over the next week or two. Now we're going to move into Rhode Island, and we're seeing schoolie action, but it really hasn't changed much since last week. I expected those fish to filter in and spread out. Still haven't seen really any fish to speak of at the west wall or any of the breachways. Most of the fish have been centered right on Aquidneck Island. My buddy Ben sent me this pic of a fish taken on Aquidneck Island. It just sort of shows the quality of fish that they're getting there. Definitely on the smaller side, but a lot of lice and a lot of, bright looking fish, which is always good to see. These fish are kind of packed up into the corners of the coves, and they've been taking white soft plastics. That's been the most popular bait so far. There's also holdovers up inside the rivers, and the larger fish are concentrated around herring runs, and the best fishing is definitely happening at night. I recommend fishing swimming plugs after dark, and I recommend having something you can fish slow, like a dandy plug or a redfin, and something you can fish really fast, like a magic swimmer, or something like a 10-inch finesse fish rigged on a swim bait hook. Just something you can kind of crank real quick and just try to mimic those herring that are trying to make it into the run before they get pounded by one of these holdovers that's hanging there in the shallows. Tog has been slow to materialize in Rhode Island proper. We're seeing some fish, but every fish I've heard of has been under 16 inches. It's a vastly different story out at Block Island. We got some pictures from Wise Kraken charters of this 7 and 9 pounders you're seeing on the screen here. And Francis Fleet also had some nice fish. I got a picture of those as well that I'll put up for you guys to check out. Rhode Island guys that are looking for trout seem to be heading into Connecticut. I got a picture of Harrison here from Watch Hill Outfitters, and he's got this beautiful brown that was taken on the Farmington, I believe. And that's been kind of the case for the freshwater guys. And again, in Rhode Island, it's going to be a big week for largemouth as well, or at least it stands to be. And again, just stick around to the end. I'll talk about why that is. Mike Wade from Watch Hill Outfitters said he heard of some good cod fishing at the East Grounds. I got a picture here just of a map showing where the East Grounds are for anyone who doesn't know. And he's also been hearing that there's been a good cod bite south of Block Island as well. Moving over into Connecticut, the guys from the Blackhawk have been making a run out to Block Island as well. They've been finding some good cod action in the early mornings, but they say that dogfish have become an issue by mid-morning. Still probably worth a run. And no real big fish, but plenty of keepers, and a lot of guys coming home with a cooler full of codfish. If you're a hardcore togger, you should still be heading west of the Connecticut River. That's where the action has been. These fish have been relating really directly to jetties and walls, like those you're going to see at Clinton Harbor and New Haven Harbor. That's really been the story in that area so far. Bait on rigs has been much more popular than jigs. I think it's just sort of a New England tradition thing. New England traditions die hard. Definitely still getting fish on jigs. But I think just maybe it's the variety of baits that work in the springtime. Guys are getting them on worms and clams and even squid strips. But really any method's working. It's just that the rigs seem to be dominating right now. Striper action continues to improve throughout the whole Connecticut River, really. You see a picture here from Mike Roy of Real Cast Charters. This is a solid fish that was taken in the lower river. He said he's been seeing a lot of action on soft plastics and starting to see some topwater action now as well. Talked to Andrew from Fishing Factory up in Middletown. He said that the bite's been great there. He said all the fish are holdover fish. They've kind of been emerging from the tributaries and whatnot. But they're crushing them on worms, and he said it's been really great to see how many guys have embraced the circle hook mandate. In fact, he hasn't really heard anybody complaining. He's had everybody coming in and asking, what hooks they should use and how they should use them and what they need to change to make that work for them, and he's just really encouraged by that, and so am I. Another bite that's been really good in that area, Middletown, Cromwell, and areas around there, is the American shad bite. It's just been red hot. Even after this rain, which stained the river a little bit but didn't blow it out, both of those fisheries have stayed viable, and guys have been just really having a great time with these two spring fisheries. Out in the Sound, there's been some better fish, some better stripers around Bluff Point. And for what's going on in the western part of the Sound, I'm going to throw it over to Max from Fisherman's World. Let's hear what he has to say.
Hey Dave, Max from Fisherman's World here. The striped bass fishing has really improved this past week. We've seen a lot of slot size and even some overslot fish mixed in. Guys dunking salmon from our beaches are scoring well. Try fishing places like Nauk Harbor, Calf Pasture Beach, and the Westport beaches. If you're going out on the boat plugging, there's no need to really leave our harbor and even shallow around the islands. These fish are being found in less than 6 feet of water. They're taking anything like SP minnows, topwaters, and big paddle tails. To our east, the Housatonic is scoring well too. The fly rod guys are doing well in the mouth, and guys surf fishing upriver are reporting some bigger fish at night, but it seems like most of the fish have moved down and are dumping out in the Sound right now. For blackfishing, it's been slow around the Nauk area with steady picks. Try fishing a little bit shallow this time of year. It should improve as the water temps rise before the season closes. Most of the blackfish reports are coming from the New Haven walls. For the freshwater front, the Connecticut DEP has done a really good job stocking the western part of the state. Places like the MAINE River, Saugatuck River, Mill River, and the Nauk River are all stocked well. Now is the time to get out and fish with the family. Thank you and good luck to all our anglers.
Thanks for that report, Max. We always appreciate those video reports from the shops or the charter boats. Really helps put a face with a name and show the passion you have for the sport. Thanks a lot for that. And that's really all I have for you guys this week. As I alluded to earlier in the report, I think this is kind of a special week with the full moon coming up on Monday. I'm going to talk a little bit about why I'm excited about this full moon. So in April, obviously we have a lot of herring runs. We have a lot of herring migrating into the area, and all migratory fish seem to respond to moons. The great thing about herring and moontide is that these higher tides make it easier for the herring to run into some of these shallower runs. It puts a lot more water in those shallow passages, but it also makes it easier for stripers to move in closer. And stripers are a migratory fish as well, so they are going to move on these moons as well. So I feel like we're going to see a lot more stripers this week. I know we're going to see an increase in herring activity this week, and that's just kind of a perfect storm for early season fishing. It always seems to be a time when we see some keeper fish showing up, even on the runs that go through the beaches in Rhode Island and Massachusetts. Maybe a little early this year, just the way things are lagging behind, but I don't know. I got a feeling we're going to see that. And now on the largemouth end of things, this moon is also a time when we sometimes see these females start to get on the beds. So these next few days before that moon, and even a little after that moon, I think you're going to see an increase in these bigger fish trying to bulk up, get that last big meal before they have to sit there and guard their eggs for a while. So it's a great time to go out and throw the big baits like I've been talking about for the last week or so with these reports. It's a great time because of the perch spawn to throw perch-colored baits, and then if you're in a herring pond, then you've really got the perfect storm because we're going to see more herring make it into the pond. And I feel like sometimes in these herring ponds in particular, the bass almost delay their spawn a little bit just to take advantage of some of these fish moving in, some of these bait fish moving in. So if you're like me and you like to throw big baits and you like to wish for a big one, I think these next 7 days are going to represent some of the best fishing we're going to see until the fall for big largemouth. We got a lot of weird weather coming up, a lot of changes, a lot of wind changes, a lot of temperature changes. So this is going to be a great week to get out there and try to make it happen. I encourage you to do so. I'm going to do the same. And that's all I got for you guys this week. I hope the reports have inspired you to go out there and catch some fish for yourself. Please, if you get photos or videos, send them in. And remember, you can't catch these fish from the couch. I know the weather's a little weird. It's cold, it's windy, but now's the time to get out there and fish. Make it happen. Best of luck this week, and we'll see you guys next week. Thanks again.
Steigercraft boats, built by people who fish our waters. Serious anglers choose Steigercraft for their 40 years of boat building experience right here in the Northeast and Mid-Atlantic. Visit steigercraft.com for a dealer near you.